Yeah, I was just thinking, with, artificial intelligence is obviously, a big deal these days. And, what's your take on artificial intelligence sort of coming up with the strategies as opposed to you coming up with the strategies? So I think what we're both kind of talking about with automated trading is like we're just maybe just offloading the execution. We've done all the work.
Hmm.
We've done the research and we know how much we want to trade, and we're just kind of offloading the execution because that's where a lot of the human errors can come into play, especially with psychology or just fat finger type stuff. And I kind of think about, so this is total side channel, but so my son started driving this year, and when I started driving, we had manual cars, right? Five
That was me
speeds.
too. Yeah.
You, I would say you look a lot younger, so I wasn't gonna like,
No,
totally
first car was
say that.
stick shift. My mom taught me when I was
Yeah,
15.
okay. Okay. So, kind of basic analogy is like, we're still driving the car, but with an automatic car, you just don't have to do as much work and you can focus on the driving as opposed to the shifting or whatever.
Sure.
But then I start thinking about autonomous cars and where you don't have control of the car. And I really don't know how it's not crashing into other, like what I mean? Like I don't know how that works. I don't know how Tesla does their FSD or Waymo or these things. So it's like, are you comfortable getting into a car like that? Is that similar to taking on a strategy that AI came up with? And how do I know AI didn't overfit it to
Mm.
whatever time frame? And what's your take on that kind of artificial intelligence world?
Yeah, so I think I want to break this up into sort of three different categories to help describe this because I think we use the current form of AI to reason. And the reason I say that is because they're really a statistical model that breaks down words and their context to one another, right? LLMs are not generalized AI from the perspective that it's hyper intelligence at a super level. It's really just trying to take the context that you've provided and give you back a response that it thinks is the highest probability of being correct, right? So the facets I would think about automation in trading for is one, you want to have good statistical literacy. I want to understand not just the win rate and profit factor of a strategy, but really kind of the distribution of risk, the distribution of returns, the whether the model has a positive expectancy and has a high probability of continuing into the future. And then I can use machine learning as a way to take those signals and determine if there's additional probabilities on top of them, right? Like at some point, the stats that we look at in the performance of a strategy are kind of summary statistics, but we can use machine learning to try to increase that performance as well by reinforcing that model. But the AI side of things, I think should largely be used to reason through your approach to markets. So I use it personally to give it a thesis that I'm working on, see if there's any academic work out there that actually supports my view, and then help me kind of think through the process of how I'm going to put the trade on, how I'm going to manage risk, how the trade should be executed, and then actually put the trade together from there, or maybe tweak my strategy to kind of follow the process. And that's because, again, LLMs should be used mostly to reason through problems and challenges and maybe help sort of reinforce your idea. And partly, I think a big part of this is that it's sort of the weakness of AI at the moment. It's kind of tuned to give you the answer that you're looking for, right? So you really have to be careful to be critical about its response so that when it says something, you come back and go, well, how could this be wrong? Maybe let's look for the errors in this process. And by doing that, you're really kind of making sure that you're taking a really critical and objective way of thinking through the process. I think what the mistake that gets made with AI in general is people will say, hey, give me a mean reversion strategy that has a win rate of 100% and I'm going to win every single time. And I think that's the error, right? You're going to get back something that's likely not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have just imagined that if, you know, if you were trying to come up with a strategy or at least give it a starting point, like, hey, moving average crossover, find the best combinations or whatever. Like I just don't think maybe that you can avoid, overfitting and those type of things. Like you would have to specifically program in those biases to not, succumb to those biases like we do. So yeah, I don't think it's
Yeah,
there yet.
I think you're making
And
a good point there because
yeah,
it's really more of a language model rather than a statistical or numerical model, right? So like it doesn't have a context of the history of that moving crossover and whether or not it's overfit. You've got to do that work yourself.
right. Yeah, good point.